reportedly ignited a fire and sent a half dozen people to the hospital. Watching Wall Street, the Dow futures are down 172 points. NASDAQ futures up 51. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan that normally sells for $65 a month. Think of it like a test drive, a super simple way to save $150 while you kick the tires on Pure Talk's blazing fast network, and a fine way to see for yourself why I switched from big wireless, along with a few 100,000 of my closest friends. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and be connected to Pure Talk's friendly U.S. customer service team. Again, dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and let the savings be.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at jurekdds.com. Arkansas State University is welcoming its first class of students to its new College of Veterinary Medicine. The inaugural class begins orientation August 6th, with classes starting August 12th. The 56,000 square foot facility will provide hands-on training and expand veterinary services across the region. The U.S. Secret Service is in operation in Arkansas, uncovered 7 illegal card skimmers across the Little Rock and Northwest Arkansas areas. More than 9,000 payment terminals, gas pumps, and ATMs were inspected, with potential losses estimated at $7.3 million. Consumers are urged to check card readers before use. Arkansas is backing away from enforcing a new specialty drug distribution law after a federal court challenge. The State Board of Pharmacy says the law likely violates the Constitution after a judge ruled it discriminated against interstate commerce. The board voted to stop enforcement. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
With your sports flash, I'm John Thayer on 101.1 The Answer. Dallas Cowboys owner and general manager Jerry Jones said yesterday as the Cowboys open up training camp that he feels he's put together a roster good enough to compete for the Super Bowl. He said he doesn't believe it's outlandish or a reach to expect a trip to the Super Bowl and says playing in that game would be a successful season. The Royals fell in Minnesota yesterday. They lost to the Twins 3-2. Kansas City just 45-63. Look to bounce back tonight as they take on the Twins at Target Field. The St. Louis Cardinals yesterday lost to the Cubs 10-2. They were out hit by 10 in the loss. Michael McGreevy drops to 4-9. Cardinals are 53-54. Cardinals and Cubs back at Busch Stadium tonight. Northside Power, your trusted name when the power goes out. Generators isn't something they do. It's all they do. Find out more at northsidepower.com. I'm John Thayer with your sports flash.
There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer.
It's a Wednesday, hump day, middle of the weekday. We are closer to Friday than we were on Monday. And Val and I were just talking. Wouldn't you love to have a big old bucket of popcorn, butter on it, some extra salt, and a large drink of your choice, and front row seats there at the committee meeting in the Senate today of Anthony Fauci.
Starts in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You're in D.C., boy. I guarantee you that place is packed.
Yeah. It'd be a deep place that you can't get into. They'll pack. Anybody who's ever been to D.C. when they have big meetings like this, this packs out the hallways and everything.
Oh, the line will be out to the street to get
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, people wanting to get in. If you wanted to see this, you should have probably brought a sleeping bag and got in line, early last evening so that you could see this. The question is, will Fauci perjure himself, or will he tell the truth?
Well, he's already made some false accusations based on this diary that people have pointed out. I can't remember the guy's name. It starts with M. I'll have to look it up. But he already made accusations, and the diary said, literally proves that was a lie.
Yeah. This is a perfect example of a biblical mandate, something that the Bible says, and you better take it to heart. And that is, your sin will find you out. And that is what has happened to Anthony Fauci.
I mean, I think the thing for me,
He has lied, and and lied again.
but who else did too? That's the thing for me, Dave. This is everyone was like, "Oh, that's a conspiracy theory that it was lab made," or then they're like, "It came from bats," or "Oh, this is a conspiracy theory." Well, now we're finding out it wasn't a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
You know what a conspiracy theory is, Dave? It's a
something
theory of one or more people.
It's something that probably is true. It just hasn't been proven yet.
Exactly, it's a hypothesis.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to start calling it, a hypothesis. That's my hypothesis.
I always say that a lot of the theories that are out there, I could see some truth to them. There's only some that I can't, like the hypothesis that the Earth is flat. Nah, ain't happening. I'm not buying into it.
Come on.
There's ones that have a lot of science behind them, and others that don't. It's going to be interesting. It is one of the questions it may be the first question that I'm going to ask Senator Cotton today, because he was the first one to come out and start talking about this, and talking about the Wuhan lab and the leak coming from the lab and all that, and that's when they started saying, "Oh no, it was coming from the marketplace," it had jumped species and all this other stuff. It is very difficult for in one fell swoop, some new type of bacteria or virus to jump from animal to human just off the bat. Very seldom does that ever happen.
Yeah, and in his diary entry dated January 26, 2020, he said that Wuhan seafood market was not the original source of the outbreak, but an amplifier. How did he know that for certain? Because he knew it was the Diffuse Project.
Yeah, there was so much stuff that was going on, and he was lying his bippy off, and the press didn't do their job. I got to tell you what, I went to school to be a journalist, and to watch the press today do their job.
It's absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, it's that they don't do their job. That's the key. They're not doing their job. And it's not objective journalism. It's advocacy journalism at its worst.
Messaging.
And it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. I'll sit here at times and I watch Val try to stay awake when I do it.
Whatever.
When I sit down, and sometimes you got to read an article.
Mm-hmm.
You've actually got to do. I know for you who are young, you hate to read. All right, I understand that, but you've got to read what the people are saying and be able to deconstruct it.
The thing about it is, I don't think journalists now, they put things that are important way down in the article, right? And if you and I know that people have like a 3-minute attention span, unless you put long. That's what the opening paragraph is supposed to be in an article.
Yep.
The bang, but you don't give it all of it. You just say, this is what gets the tease.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Ray Lincoln, God rest his soul, used to say something to me that I would laugh about it. I knew it was true, but I would laugh about it. And he'd say, Dave, make sure you read the Saturday paper because that's where they put the truth.
Yeah, Friday news dump. Yeah,
Yeah,
that part.
That's what he would say, and he was right on that. He really was. He's a smart man about how people try. They can then say that, well, we told you so, but nobody saw it because how many people really spent a lot of time on Saturday reading the paper?
Right.
I would just look. Monday through Friday, and Val is the same way. We are seriously deep into the news of what's going on. We're trying to follow as many stories as we can, and you get to the weekend, you kind of want to take a breath.
Sometimes I can't. Sometimes my brain's like, all right, what's going on today?
I mean, after 9/11, you didn't have time,
right,
to take a breath. I mean, you were sitting and reading and seeing what new things had been uncovered and things of that nature. But bottom line is, on Saturday, you kind of let things fly.
And it's crazy because everyone thinks news stops just because it's the weekend. No. And I don't understand how they put the worst anchors on the news. They put the newbies on. It doesn't stop. The news don't stop just because it's a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday. There's always news. There's always crime. There's always people being shady. That's just like at hospitals. They put the newbies in there on the weekends. Well, people don't stop getting sick just because it's Friday.
Well, I understand.
That's the worst time to go to the hospital, by the way, on the weekend.
Here's the key, okay, that I talk about, and that is the people that are, doing advocacy journalism and how they just totally ignore the truth.
Ignore it completely.
They ignore it because with a news story, the way it starts is that you hear something or you watch something and you go, that doesn't ring right to me. That doesn't sound right. I've been around for 73 years now, and I when you hear me on the air say, if it looks like, poop and it smells like poop, and when you step in it, you wish you hadn't poop, it's probably poop.
Well, maybe with the COVID thing, they couldn't smell it was poop.
Yeah,
so
that's possible. But I'm just saying, it was just, there's like too many inconsistencies or coincidences that they are drawing from.
And it baffles me that you and I see those things. And I don't know if it's just because we're trained that way, but I've been that way since I was like 12 years old. Before I went to college to be a journalist, before I went for communications, I was that way. I just don't understand how people can't go, oh, whoa, hold up a second. Instead, they're like, oh, you're wrong. You're a conspiracy theorist. Mm-hmm. Like, it blows me away that we can see things that others don't even acknowledge.
And don't want to acknowledge.
Right. Well, maybe that's it.
And look, I understand. I'm one of those people that I want to believe my government has my best interest in mind. All right. That's what I want to have. But I know from past experiences, that's not always the truth. Mm-mm. And that the people that are serving at some of the highest offices in the land, that they're doing it just for the money and the power. That's the only, it's not for you. It's not for me. It's for them.
I mean, I think this whole thing is with COVID was Fauci loved being in the spotlight.
Yeah.
He loved it.
This whole thing in his journal is crazy.
It's like a Batman movie, like the mad scientist villain,
the Mad Hatter,
and then the wealthy billionaire Bill Gates. Like all coming together with the politicians, the crooked politicians who give them a pardon. Like, that's crazy. Like, and to say that the Democrats in Biden's office didn't know any of this is baloney, or they wouldn't have given him a pardon.
Well, the other thing that has been very interesting is how all this stuff about his, being in dementia and things of that nature, and everybody said, no,
that's an act.
He's as sharp as a tack, and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And now it's coming out that everybody near him knew.
And what was it Kamala wrote in her book? I was helpless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
So you knew, and you did not do you derelict your duty because you didn't say anything to Congress. You didn't pull the 25th Amendment because why? Because you knew that you wouldn't have a chance in getting reelected because there's just no way. 3 years of her, they would have been done. Well, so she got her 3 years with Jill Biden running the place and then tried to do it again.
You know, that there's some people that weren't in the headlines of all of that really should be held up to public ridicule. I mean, we should put them in stocks in the public square and throw rotten tomatoes at them and stuff.
I mean, Jill's just as bad as Hillary.
Yeah, she's the worst.
How do you put your husband through that, honestly?
You know, because you had the power.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it was all about. I mean, this had happened almost 100 years earlier. During what was it? The president who had the stroke, Woodrow Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read any history books that have dug into that, the man couldn't put a certain sentence together. He was totally inept. And it was his wife that was signing the laws and things of that nature. They didn't have the pen that they got now. Nope. You can look at the signature and tell that it's been forged.
Yeah.
You should take a look at that. I brought up to my wife a few months ago, and she says, I can't believe that people believe that our country would infect people with a disease. And I said, well, of course they do, because they've done it before. And she says, what do you mean? I said, here, go to your phone and start searching Tuskegee Airmen. Go take a look at that.
Or even earlier than that, Dave.
And then go back to San Francisco, where the government put the flu inside the subways in San Francisco to see how quickly it would move through a group of people.
Or when they gave smallpox to the Indians. Here's some blankets for you. Yeah, to keep you warm in the winter. And it killed how many Indians?
They knew it. They knew what they were doing. You know, so there's precedent for this kind of stuff. There really is precedent.
And people that just say, oh, what wouldn't possibly. You're not thinking in the big grand scheme of things, because one, you don't have that power and you'll never have it. And you don't think like that. You're not on that level of thinking. It's just like a murderer. You're like, oh, how could they do that? Because you don't know what level of crazy they're on.
Yeah.
Because you're not there.
Well, I'll say this much. The saying that a lot of people use that I run away from as fast as I can is my country right or wrong. I'm not into that. My country is wrong, and I'm going to stand up next to them and defend them. That's not what I do.
Right.
Never have. I mean, that's what I always say. Everybody says I'm a Zionist because of how I stand up with Israel. Well, if Israel does, things that I think are immoral, I'll bring it up and talk about it. All right, as far as that goes. But for the most part, I'm with like Lindsey Graham was. I'm on Israel's side. All right. She's giving me the peace sign. No, she's giving me a sign that means I got a break. It's the first break of the hour, 7:20. Don't forget that Congressman Westerman will be on at 7:35, and at 8:05 we're going to have Senator Tom Cotton on. And the first question I'll ask him is, does he feel vindicated with some of this stuff finally coming out, and we know that Fauci was wrong and that Cotton was right. We'll talk about that later on in the program this morning. The Dave Elswick Show, 101.1 is the frequency we're on. Glad you joined us today, whether you're listening on the radio or you're listening on your computer or whatever you're doing here to stay up to date on what's going on.
The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk.
It's David Lucas. You know, over the years, I've learned something. Most people, they don't have a money problem. They have a coordination problem. It's not that they don't have investments. They have plenty of accounts, but none of them are working together. In other words, they have all the ingredients, but no recipe. And when that happens, retirement can start to feel complicated, even stressful. But retirement should feel like freedom, not friction. And most people, they don't need a miracle. They just need a clear plan. Because having a few good investments isn't enough. What really helps is having everything working together. And that's why at Lucas Total Wealth, we developed the Thrive Planning Framework, bringing together taxes, healthcare, risk management, income planning, vitality, and estate planning into one coordinated strategy. You can learn more at totalwealth.com. That's totalwealth.com. Don't just retire, plan to thrive.
Investment advisory services are offered through Lucas Total Wealth, an Arkansas registered investment advisor. Arkansas Insurance License, number 1-615-2743.
This is 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Start your morning with a voice you know and trust. Dave Elswick, bringing you the issues that matter to Arkansas, the news behind the headlines, and conversations you won't hear anywhere else. Then in the afternoon, stay informed and fired up with Doc Washburn, breaking down the biggest stories of the day and what they mean for you. And all day long, hear from some of the biggest voices in talk radio. CNN's Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, and Larry Elder, bringing you sharp insight, lively debate, and the perspective you've been looking for. News, opinion, insight, and the conversations shaping our community. From Little Rock to the natural state and beyond. This is 101.1 The Answer. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. America is at a tipping point. To ensure we stay the land of the free and home of the brave, you need to be informed and engaged. That's why we're here. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. Now, back to the Dave Elswick Show. 101.1 The Answer.
I kind of like yesterday, can't talk this morning, was talking about, was being interviewed at Lindsey Graham's memorial at the cathedral. And he talked about people trying to find, fissures in between him and Trump. And he just kind of laughed and he says, there are no fissures between us. Yes, we disagree at times, but we have one overriding thing that we're trying to do, and that's keep Iran from having nuclear weapons and getting the ballistic missile technology they want, cutting back on the drones and all of that. So, I mean, he named off like the top four things that Trump always says. Number one being no nuclear weapon. They understand more than anybody else that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon over there. It's just impossible. And I think it was interesting. You see, Saudi Arabia is getting really fed up, with Iran. And they're attacking the Houthis now because of some of the things the Houthis are up to. I sooner or later, and I think Val and I have talked about this enough on the air and even off the air, that sooner or later, push is going to come to shove. And the United States is going to use really their might, and they're going to take care of Iran. They're going to take care of those people. They're trying. I think that Trump is trying as hard as he can. I could be wrong, but it just seems to me he's trying as hard as he can not to have, people outside the conflict getting killed. I mean, that's why he doesn't go in and bomb power plants in the middle of Tehran. Even with the smartest munitions, if you miss by a couple of feet, you start killing people, innocent people. that you don't want to kill, and you want to keep the people on your side. You don't want the people who have Persian, ancestry is a problem of I don't know, turning against you. You want all of their energy turned towards getting rid of the regime. Now I have questions. I wish that I could sit down with the president, and why not? There's several people that we know. We've had them on this show, in fact, that could take over and run Iran. Now, would it mean maybe a civil war inside Iran? Yeah, probably would. I don't foresee that regime just throwing their hands up and saying, okay, you take it over. I don't see that happening. When they took it over, they didn't just throw their hands up and hope that it would happen. They were very active in making sure that the people rebelled and that they were able to have their power behind them to get rid of the Shah. I mean, they did everything they could. One of the great things that I have at my disposal doing a talk show is that I was alive during that time when it was happening. And I wasn't just I wasn't a zygote in my mother's belly. No, I was in, middle school and getting into high school. So I was paying attention. Every night when I was a kid, I sat with my father and we watched Huntley and Brinkley. No, I didn't watch Uncle Walter because Uncle Walter, my father always told me, he said, he's a sheep in wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing. And we found that out after he died, and found out that he was, bending stories the way he wanted them to be reported. I mean, that's why Dan Rather fell out of the good graces of the American public. He was a mentor from Uncle Walter, and people got tired of that type of reporting. And Dan Rather was reporting some of the biggest stories that ever happened in the history of the United States. He was the guy who ran the tape, down from downtown Dallas to the CBS affiliate there to get it on television so that you could see there's a pewter tape and see it, and you could see what happened. I mean, that's Rather, he cut his teeth on news. There's no doubt about it. If you ever want to read a great book, I know this is a good book for being out on the beach, is The Camera Never Blinks. Okay, talking about a TV camera looking at you. It looks like a big eye looking at you. And so you just want to make sure you look directly into it and you speak the truth. And that's what Walter couldn't do later on in his career. All right, we got to get Bill O'Reilly up. Let's find out what he's got to say, see if he's got anything about Fauci on the Dave Elswick Show.
You know your business inside.
Bill O'Reilly here, and I'm warming up.
Community.
Stand by
Salem
for the
Media's
O'Reilly
podcast.
Update Morning Edition. But first, homeowners, when is the last time you checked your home title? Scammers are everywhere, and they're targeting your equity. With just a single forged document, they can file at the county. So don't wait until it's too late. Find out if you are already a victim today. Please go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use the promo code BILL to get a free title history report, plus a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. On this Wednesday, I'm thinking about fraud in America. The federal government is now suspending funds for Medicaid to Minnesota and California. If you get sick in Minneapolis or LA or anywhere in those states, the federal money may not be there to reimburse you. So why is this happening? Well, the Trump administration believes both states are allowing massive fraud to take place. Federal dollars are being stolen, and local authorities are not doing much about it. Last week, Robert Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services, said, quote, "We have reason to believe that money is being misused. We have a duty to stop the payments. Well, here are the facts. Prosecutors believe criminals in Minnesota stole at least $9 billion from the taxpayers. A similar situation happening in California. At least 80 individuals now face federal charges. But state officials under Governor Tim Walz and radical Attorney General Keith Ellison did little. The feds had to make those cases. The truth is, far-left leadership enables this kind of fraud. Progressive politicians generally are not really interested in the theft of federal money, especially if immigrants are involved. Back in a moment. Most people already know what medications they take. You don't need another waiting room. You just need an easier way to get them. So please check out All Family Pharmacy. More than 400 prescription medications online. Fill out a quick form. Licensed doctors review it, and you get the meds shipped right to your door. Let them know I sent you. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/bill. Use code BILL10 for 10% off. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
We're not adults, so just be there and listen. I just want someone to yap to. And I just feel like I'll be fine if someone just hears me talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk.
You're doing a really good job. And I don't think I tell you that enough. And I know sometimes we get into it and it's just hard on both of us. But, try to understand me more and I'll try to do the same.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
Up in your business with Kerry McCoy, a production of FlagAndBanner.com. After the U.S. and Iran stepped up their fighting. The conference board said Tuesday that its consumer confidence index fell to 90.8 in July from 92.2 in June. Johnson & Johnson has agreed to pay $5.5 billion to tie up remaining lawsuits that claim its talc products caused ovarian cancer. The drug maker has been fighting talc-related lawsuits for more than a decade. Visa plans to cut 7% of its workforce, or about 2,600 jobs, according to a company spokesperson, as the payments processor seeks to become more efficient. The job cuts will primarily affect technology and product teams. UPS lifted annual revenue and profit forecast above Wall Street estimates on Tuesday as it returned to growth on strong domestic demand after it completed a plan to deliver fewer packages for Amazon. For the Wall Street Business Report, I'm Bill Alexander in Washington.
The Dave Elswick Show is back. 101.1, The Answer.
All right, here's a story that hasn't gotten a lot of reporting. I don't know if you've heard about this or not, Val. And I'm hearing the phone ring. It must mean that Congressman Westerman's ready to go. Over in Iran, at one of the prisons, the prisoners are carrying on a hunger strike against the regime and the killing that they're doing, the executions and the hangings and the shootings and all of that. The hunger strike started back on the 13th of the month when 6 inmates were transferred to solitary confinement ahead of possible executions. Other Iranian human rights groups said the prisoners had been convicted of drug-related offenses. Reports indicate that the striking prisoners have been chanting no to execution and taking extreme measures, including sewing their lips shut. All right, so really they're walking around like little shrunken heads, something out of Beetlejuice or whatever. One media outlet cited a video that appeared to show an inmate speaking to the camera and saying he was going to sew his lips shut because 6 days into the hunger strike, no prison official had responded to the protest. Well, dude, don't expect, the Iranian regime to fall down on your side if you're in prison. And they use the prisons as a way of punishment in Iran. So anyway, that's a story I hadn't heard anything about. I'll see if I can dig up some more things about it, more truth that you can hear about that. All right, joining us is going to be Congressman Bruce Westerman, District 4, here on the Dave Elswick Show. Before we get into talking about world events, Congressman, let me ask for you to give your final thoughts on Senator Lindsey Graham. Did you ever have an opportunity to speak with him, and did he ever share any of his secret sauce with you?
No, I have visited with Lindsey a few times, and I didn't know him that well, but he was a fun guy to be around. He just always seemed to have something going on, and very friendly and outgoing. But I didn't have a whole lot of contact with the senator, but I did know him, and I got to spend a little bit of time around him. I have heard lots of stories about him since he's passed, though, and like every senator that I've talked to, when you say his name, they just smile because he was the guy that was always joking around and had something going on.
Yeah, well, he was one of those senators that if you said, I just had a conversation with Lindsey, and typically, correct me if I'm wrong, in Congress and as far as in the House or in the Senate, you usually refer to the member by their last name, Congressman, such and such, or whatever. When people would say, I just talked to Lindsey, people knew that you knew the guy pretty good, and they could listen and get some truth out of you. Is that kind of the way it works in Congress? Or certain people go by, you can say their name, their first name, and everybody knows who you're talking about?
Yeah, and he was definitely that person that everybody knew who Lindsey was, and that's how he wanted to be known. And he brought that persona to the relationship when you talk to him. That I'm just Lindsey, and how's it going, kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, he stood for two things that I can tell you I appreciated him for.
And
one,
the mic check.
He would talk and he was a staunch supporter of Israel, which I am as well. And he is a staunch supporter, or was a staunch supporter, of the unborn, which, I am as well. So I could find a whole lot more room of where I could have worked with Lindsey Graham than I would have been against Lindsey Graham. I mean, there was a couple of times that, he said things that I thought was a problem.
With SRN News,
all right.
I'm Rich.
We got some cross-talk and we got to get taken care of. All right, so what's your take on what's going on with Iran now? Is it all just a wait and see time right now? Or is it just I mean, look, they fired at one of our bases yesterday in Jordan. You and I have talked about sooner or later push is going to come to shove. The president said yesterday if he wanted to take out the bridges in Iran, he could do it within an hour. If he wanted to take out the power plants, he could do it within a day. You think we're going to see that type of military action now in Iran? Because they sure don't seem like they're ready to play ball with anybody.
Unfortunately not. And, this last round of 12 days or 13 days of pretty sustained attacks, and they did take out some bridges and infrastructure. And, Iran, I think whoever's in control there, probably the military, they'll say or do anything to get a little bit of reprieve to kind of get their feet back under them. And I unfortunately, I think it's going to take more to ever get them to break down or to get it to the point where the people in Iran rise up and take over their government. But this is, it just seems to be the game plan of the Iranians, the ones in leadership right now, to stretch this out, to do anything, say anything, to make it last a little bit longer, because they know the pressure is building on President Trump the longer this goes. And I haven't been briefed on what the ultimate plan is, but it seems to be a pattern where we bomb the snot out of them and then wait and see what they're going to do. And their reaction is, oh, we want to talk. And they get a little break and start back fighting again. Fortunately, those missiles aimed at our base were intercepted.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be terrible if one of them wasn't.
Yeah, we don't want any of our people getting killed over there. We don't want civilians in some of the surrounding Middle Eastern countries being killed. And we're trying to contain the IRGC and the Iranians and what they're trying to do. Do you believe, and I'm kind of going to ask you to look into your crystal ball, it seemed to me that the president would like to get this all done, before the midterm elections, so that gasoline prices would come down even more than they did. And he'd have positive things to talk to the American people about. It doesn't look like it's going to end up that way. Do you think that Americans understand why we're doing what we're doing, or are they still, is the jury still out on what's happening and what the American people think about it?
Yeah, well, I think some people understand and some people don't understand, and some people don't want to understand. And some people are looking at this just as a way to be more negative on Trump. But you have to remember, Iran was not too far away from having a nuclear weapon, and they're not going to build a nuclear weapon as a deterrent. They're trying to build one to use it. So I think it's going to continue to drag on, and I think that's part of the calculus of the Iranians that, if they can drag this out to the election and it's negative for Trump, then they're going to be even better off going forward, because if Democrats win the House, especially the House or the Senate, the only thing in the news is going to be what charge they're bringing against Trump today. And It's going to be a huge deterrent distraction from him dealing with Iran or anything else.
Yeah, let's talk about that just a little bit, because if the Democrats would get control of the House again, that's where impeachment has to start. You got to believe that they would do it in a heartbeat. They did it before, and I'm just wondering, do you believe the Democratic Party can overplay their hand on that and turn the American public off from it?
Well, they've already demonstrated before they'll overplay their hand on it every single time. So yeah, they'll definitely would do that if they are able to win the majority. But I think the verdict's still out on that. I think they may be overplaying their hand on the leverage and the positioning they have going into the midterms.
Well, let me ask you a question about there's several different groups in Iran that want to bring back, freedom of elections and things of that nature. And the president hasn't given the nod towards any of them. Maybe you can't talk, and you can take the fifth if you want to, basically, and tell me, is the caucus having any discussions about particular people getting into power in Iran and getting this regime out of power?
No, I haven't heard any internal communications on that. I'm reading some of the same probably news stories that you're seeing. And I really, no, I haven't heard any talk about getting behind a particular person or a particular group on the internal politics in Iran.
Yeah, because it seems like right now, as I watch the president trying and struggling with some of these decisions that he makes and talking about the peace talks and whatnot, I don't know if anyone outside of Iran knows who's in power and who's the people you should be talking to. So I guess you've got to go with, what your intelligence is telling you from the DNI and the Mossad and all the other people that are working on the ground in Iran to figure out who you need to get these messages to about what you would like to see happen in Iran.
Yeah, I think you're right, and the intelligence agencies and the military leaders, they have a much better feel for that and what's going on, who's calling the shots. I don't think they're sharing all of that information widely either.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yep. All right, so let's take a break. We got some other things to talk about. Let's talk about your and my favorite figure, Dr. Fauci. When we come back here on the Dave Elswick Show. It's 11 minutes until 8 on a Wednesday on 101.1 The Answer.
Moment in American history is brought to you by
Americans for Prosperity Foundation, Arkansas. Find out more at believeInar.com.
On July 4th, 1776, a group of seemingly ordinary men made an extraordinary decision in a small room in Philadelphia. They put their names to a document that would change the world. The Declaration of Independence wasn't just a breakup letter for King George. It was a bold statement of principle that our rights don't come from government, but from God, that all men are created equal, and that liberty is worth risking everything for. Today, 250 years later, those words still matter, because America isn't just a place, it's an idea born in courage, sustained by sacrifice, and passed from generation to generation. Celebrating America 250. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. We bring you the biggest news stories of the day. Not to tell you what to think, but to allow you to have the most information so you can make up your mind. 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. If things don't change, can you imagine America in 20 years? Scary thought, isn't it? The good news is we have the power to take our nation back. Stay right here for all the information you need. 101.1 The Answer. The conservative voice of Arkansas. The Dave Elswick Show on 101.1 The Answer.
All right, we move on with our congressman from District 4, Bruce Westerman. Don't forget, coming up after the news in the next hour, we'll be joined for a small amount of time. Senator Tom Cotton will join us. And my first question to the senator is he finally feeling vindicated about all the things he said about the Wuhan virus when it first was discovered and COVID was discovered, and how we were being misled. I mean, he was the first one to raise, shoot the flare up into the sky and say, hey, we need to pay attention to this. Your thoughts about Fauci being there on Capitol Hill today, Congressman? There's got to be a buzz up there in Congress, knowing that he's going to be on the Senate side in front of Lindsey Graham and his people. And he's going to be strongly questioned about the timeline and the things that we know really did happen at the Wuhan lab and things of that nature. Your thoughts about Fauci? Do you have any thoughts about why he lied his butt off the way he did to the American people?
That's a great question. You know, that almost seems like a name from the past when we hear Fauci. I was at an event last night. Yeah, I was at an event last night, and that's what most people are talking about. How they want to see Fauci held to justice, and hopefully this is the beginning of that. I've always thought there was some kind of connection with some program Fauci was in and the research that was going on in China. And I think he was in some kind of a cover-up. And I don't have anything other than intuition to lead me to believe that, but hopefully that will come out in these hearings. And you're right. You know, Senator Cotton was on that almost immediately when the COVID virus came out. You had all the denials and almost like people were trying to take up for China and defend China in the discussions, and Fauci was there leading the charge. You know, he was the darling there for a while. He was out. You know, people are like, thank goodness for Dr. Fauci, and it turns out he's. I think he's kind of in that category with James Comey. He had he started off looking really good, but the more we found out about him, the less impressed we are.
Yeah, that's no doubt. And Senator Cotton, I kind of compare him to you at times and how you were treated when you came out with your idea about the money for kids to follow them to whatever school they wanted to go to and things of that nature. And like I like to say, you were called every name in the book except your own. And the same thing happened to the senator. He was called every name in the book except for, you know, Senator Cotton. He was called, I mean, they attacked him full force during that. I remember how unrelenting and tough that was for him. But he stuck to his guns. I'm gonna be interesting here in the next half hour. I'm going to have him on, and that's my first question. Does he? And I've asked you this on the air. Do you feel vindicated now that the information comes out about, you know, what it was that you wanted to do and not what everybody else was saying you wanted to do?
Yeah, you do, but it's also, it can be frustrating. But actually, my dad had this saying when I was growing up, and I don't know where it came from, but he said, if you throw a rock in the dog pen, the one that gets hit is the one that barks. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you hear a lot of barking when the message gets a little too close to home. And I think this is true. It's true with education. It's true with what happened during COVID. And, you know, if you look back on it, and they're trying to say that there was this meat market by this lab. Yep. That, you know, just so happened to be they were doing all kinds of research on biological organisms in the lab, but it came from this meat market, not from the lab. And, you know, it's like they were trying to make up a story that, you know, eventually people were going to figure out the COVID started in this area. So let's blame it on this meat market where they had probably some bats and other stuff in there rather than on the lab. And the statistics of it coming from the meat market it would be a pretty far-fetched idea that that's where COVID-19 originated. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of all this, and hopefully if Fauci was covering something up, he'll be held accountable for that.
Yeah, I sure hope so. You know, I think that his new color should be orange, but we'll see if that happens or not. I mean, my whole thing about Fauci is, you know, he was talking about, you know, tens of thousands of people dying here in the United States, falling dead in the streets and all the rest. And he had paperwork that showed that they thought at worst it would be like 0.02% of the population that would be infected. In fact, what he had in his hand in that one report that he speaks of in his diary, it was almost right to the button how many people died. And he had that information. Instead, he was building it up that it was going to be like the Spanish flu back in the 50s or in the turn of the century that killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, where they didn't even have room to put the bodies anymore. So it's very interesting that all of this is coming out and it's in his own hand.
Yeah. I was thinking back when all that started. I'm pretty sure it was Fauci that came in, and we're just talking about odd things like brass doorknobs versus metal doorknobs and plastic surfaces, and where the virus could live and where it wouldn't live. And we're trying to find out information like what's the origin of this? How did this come about? And they just spend all their time talking about some trivial thing like the type of material that the door handle's made out of, which one's going to make the virus transmit more,
That's
and
it.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they were trying to get the people's attention off of the important stuff onto minutia, which I got to give Fauci credit. He was able to do it, but he did it because the media allowed him to do it, and the media would attack anybody that said anything different than what Dr. Fauci said. Congressman, when are you leaving to head back here to the state?
I'm back in Arkansas now. We had our final vote last Thursday, and then I went out to Utah to look at some devastating fire damage and the flooding that happened afterwards. That was probably more devastating than the fire. That people don't often realize that's one of the worst side effects of a major wildfire is the flooding and the debris that comes after that. And then back in the state, making the rounds, and have a very busy August lined up.
Well, we're going to try to talk to your people and get you into the studio sometime here while you're back in the state. But you go and have a great day today, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Dave. Always good to visit.
It is. It's great to talk to you because I know I'm going to get the truth. All right, 2 minutes until 9 o'clock. Let's take a break, and news is coming up. We'll find Fauci's supposed to take the stand anytime in the Senate. So we'll see where we stand on that on the Dave Elswick Show, 101.1 The Answer.
Freedom has a frequency, and it's 101.1. The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. KDXE, Kamak Village, Little Rock.
With your news flash, I'm Trey Westerberg, 101.1 The Answer. Receive your dental implants and new smile in as little as 1 day with Little Rock's dental implant specialist, Dr. Samuel F. Jurek, DDS. Schedule your consultation now at jurekdds.com. The U.S. Secret Service is in operation in Arkansas, uncovered 7 illegal card skimmers across the Little Rock and Northwest Arkansas areas. More than 9,000 payment terminals, gas pumps, and ATMs were inspected, with potential losses estimated at $7.3 million. Consumers are urged to check card readers before use. Arkansas is backing away from enforcing a new specialty drug distribution law after a federal court challenge. The State Board of Pharmacy says the law likely violates the Constitution after a judge ruled it discriminated against interstate commerce. The board voted to stop enforcement. Arkansas State University is welcoming its first class of students to its new College of Veterinary Medicine. The inaugural class begins orientation August 6th, with classes starting August 12th. The 56,000 square foot facility will provide hands-on training and expand veterinary services across the region. I'm Trey Westerberg with your news flash on 101.1 The Answer.
Parent with his constituents or step down.
McConnell was hospitalized June 14th. his office revealing weeks later that it was due to a fall. Bashir made the demand in a letter after the Office of the Attending Physician said McConnell had been discharged from hospital care but remains in a rehabilitation facility and has not yet been medically cleared to return to work. McConnell released a statement saying he hates to miss the fun but will not be attending this Saturday's Fancy Farm Picnic. It's an annual event that draws political figures to Western Kentucky. Bashir called on McConnell to address the people of Kentucky verbally and provide proof of his capacity. The governor's also asking Senate Majority Leader John Thune to investigate McConnell's condition. I'm Jennifer King.
The Saudis say they have shot down a number of Iranian drones. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia retaliating by attacking Iranian proxies in Iraq. More on these stories at townhall.com.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So, yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you got to call Big Lou because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds, too. Get a quote right now at 800-555-2085, 800-555-2085, or biglou.com.
The earthquake death toll has reached 18 on the Japanese island of Kyushu as a massive search and rescue operation continues.
Soldiers and emergency workers are combing through a badly damaged shopping mall and collapsed houses, looking for trapped survivors on Wednesday, a day after the 7.1 magnitude quake. The Aeon Mall shopping centre in Kashima City was bustling with thousands of people when the quake happened. The company said 3,000 customers were evacuated to a parking lot before a gas explosion happened in another part of the mall, where some people were still working. Japanese Prime Minister Sane Takaichi said the rescue effort was a race against time, but that emergency services would go all out to find and rescue as many people as possible. I'm Karen Shamath.
Wildfires prompting French authorities to order nearly 4,000 more people to evacuate from the Atlantic coast. News and analysis at townhall.com. A Georgia school shooter who killed 2 students and 2 teachers has been sentenced to life in prison, no parole.
Colt Gray was 14 at the time of the shootings at Appalachia High School. He's 16 now. District Attorney Brad Smith says the sentencing message must be clear.
Colt Gray cannot be in society.
Judge Nicholas Prim called Gray's crimes deliberate, contemplated evil.
You do not seem to be tormented by what you did.
Smith says he hopes his team had done honor to the victims and their loved ones.
This is not a happy day. This is a relief day.
The judge acknowledged Gray had been failed by his parents, his extended family, and to a certain extent, society. I'm Ed Donahue.
Meeting in Washington this week, the Fed's expected to leave its benchmark interest rate unchanged. We'll find out later today. On Wall Street, ahead of the opening bell, Dow futures are down 369 points. More on these stories, townhall.com.
There's a real battle going on, not only for our future, but that of our children and grandchildren. How do we ensure they have it better than we do? One way is to keep listening to us. We're your information source in the battle. 101.1, The Answer.
All right, we should be hearing from Senator Tom Cotton any moment, and we'll be ready to talk to him. First question, I want to know if he feels vindicated that he was the one that was blowing the whistle on the Wuhan lab, and they were calling him all kinds of names, and he was full of himself, and yada yada yada. And now we know that it looks like it came out of the Wuhan lab. There's a whole lot of information that points the bony finger, the fickle finger of fate at that particular lab and what they were doing there, and that they were working on it to make it where it was easier to catch it, and it would move through society faster and things of that nature. Of course, Fauci said that nobody was trying to weaponize. That's the word I always use when I'm talking about a lab working on viruses. They're figuring ways of how to weaponize, certain, viruses and bacteria and all kinds of stuff. And they did it with the flu back in the turn of the 20th century, and a lot of different things that they've done over time. The whole study on syphilis and how they infected a lot of students in Tuskegee to see how that disease worked and things of that nature. There's, history is rampant with a lot of things that were done to people without their knowledge. People were given, and as Val pointed out, back in the day when the Native Americans were, people passed out blankets to them and knew that it was carrying the smallpox disease, and the Native Americans had no real immunity to it, and it killed thousands of them out on the plains of America. So, disease has been used as a weapon for a long, long time, as has gas, chemical warfare as well. I just watched a segment on Prime, and it's dealing with the Nazi regime. And we all know about the war. We all know where they fought and all the rest. And we know about the Holocaust and all of that. We might not know things that were going on to facilitate and open it up as a freeway so that they could get out and infect people with gas or some kind of biological weapon. I understand we've got our junior senator on the line, Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, thanks for giving us some time here today on the Dave Elswick Show.
Hey, Dave, it's good to be on with you.
It's good to have you to talk to. First question, I've told people all morning long that this was the question I was going to ask. Fauci is back on the Senate side, up there on the Hill. Do you feel vindicated now that all the people who attacked you and he attacked you and whatnot about you came out and said that COVID was the Wuhan virus, that it came out of a business, a lab in China? Do you feel vindicated now that all those people that called you all those terrible names now, I mean, they called you everything except your real name, and you stood on it?
Well, Dave, thanks for the trip down memory lane. Dave, it's not so much feeling vindicated as making sure that we understand what happened and we prevent it from happening in the future, and that we hold China accountable for it. I think that's what most Arkansans want. It's not about my personal vindication. I never put much stock in what Tony Fauci or the New York Times said anyway. It's about making sure that everyone knows the truth of what happened. That virus almost certainly came from the lab in Wuhan, not some random food market, and that China intentionally concealed its origin and concealed its spread to unleash it on the world, and that we don't allow that to happen in the future. So what I've been doing for the last 6 years in the Senate since the pandemic is trying to stop it from happening in the future. and to help us recover from what happened and not repeat the mistakes of what happened again. So, Tony Fauci can come up here today and he can plead the fifth, which is bizarre to me because Joe Biden gave him a pardon for all of his potential crimes. And he can try to maintain whatever shred of reputation or integrity he might have left. Although after the release of those diaries this week, it isn't much and certainly shouldn't be much. I'm going to stay focused not on Tony Fauci and getting vindication against him, Dave, but fighting for the people of Arkansas to make sure that we hold China accountable and we don't repeat that mistake again.
Well, I just wanted to say a personal thank you that you came out with that information early on, and we talked about it, not you and I, but the listeners and I talked about it here on my show. And it was just amazing to me how vicious that people were and what the press was. What do you think about the press? I got to think that you don't trust them in any way, shape, or form.
Well, the liberal media, Dave, has not much reformed. And if you just go to any website of the liberal media, the New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, you see full-on nonstop resistance to Donald Trump and the Republican Congress and what we're trying to accomplish for the people of Arkansas and our nation. It goes far beyond just skepticism. It's outright advocacy. The mask has fallen. That's not to say, Dave, that there can't be a good reporter or a good columnist here or there working for those liberal outlets. But by and large, the mask is off. The liberal media is just the media wing of the Democratic Party and the radical left.
All right. So let's move into what's going on in Washington. Yesterday, the remembrances of Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham passing away here just a few days ago. Did you have very many workings with the senator? And if you did, can you talk about it?
Did I? Yeah, Lindsey Graham was one of a kind. He's an American original. He grew up in an apartment over his dad's bar. His mom and dad died within barely a year of each other when he was 22. He had his younger sister, Darlene, who he ended up becoming the legal guardian for. She's now replaced him in the Senate to carry on his legacy. But Lindsey was just a ball of action. I thought it was funny when John Thune yesterday concluded his very poignant remarks by saying, "Rest in peace." Because that was the one thing Lindsey never did while he was living.
Right.
He was never restful or never peaceful. If he wasn't in South Carolina, he was traveling the world, visiting with our troops, standing shoulder to shoulder with our allies and the forces of freedom, or traveling to Mar-a-Lago to play golf with the president. He was just one of a kind. Obviously, we didn't agree on everything, but we agreed on most things. Lindsey and I did. He was a patriot, and if you loved America, he loved you, and if you fought for freedom, he fought for you. And he was just funny as all get out. I remember when he first met me. I was a brand new congressman. He first met me while we were traveling with the delegation to represent our nation at the Munich Security Conference. And that night he slapped me on the back and told me that I was great and he loved my story and I needed to run for the Senate. And then he came into the meeting the next morning a little late. He may have had a few too many of those Munich beers. And he came over to me at the line at the coffee stand and slapped me on the back again and said, "You're great. You're great. We got to get you run for Senate." Now, what was your name again?
That sounds like the Senate. It really does. That sounds like people who were in power for a long time. How about talking to us about the Democrat Party? Let's talk about them and the rise of socialism. And it just amazes me the ignorance of the people who won't stand against socialism when we know what Mao did. We know what Lenin did, what Stalin did. We know the millions of people that those three people I just mentioned killed. How do people find positive things to talk about that?
Yeah, David, the socialists have taken over the Democratic Party. Look, they elected an open socialist, Zoran Mamdani, to be the mayor of New York City. It's not just being mayor, Dave. It's going to affect Arkansans directly. They're nominating socialists in congressional districts in New York and in New Jersey and in Denver. And these are the people who are going to be making laws under which we have to live in Arkansas. It spread statewide. They nominated one socialist in Maine, And then he had to drop out because of his Nazi tattoo and his abuse of women. And the guy they replaced him with may not have a Nazi tattoo, but he's got the same socialist views. I predict they're about to do the same in Minnesota and Wisconsin. It's very alarming. These are radicals who want to defund ICE and to say they don't care if illegal aliens have documents or not. And we do have them right here in Arkansas. They'll come out and they'll protest on weekends. We can't let them win nationwide, and we certainly can't let them win in Arkansas.
So I guess you would tell me that my thoughts that the American people reject socialism maybe isn't that way.
No, I think in most places they do reject socialism. The place where they don't is in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, in some of these deep blue congressional districts, in places like New York and New Jersey and Denver, getting that Democratic nomination is the equivalent of getting elected. So these people are going to be serving in the Congress in January. Now, some of these Democratic Socialist nominees for the Senate in places like Maine and I suspect in Michigan next week, we can defeat them, and we have to defeat them to make sure that Arkansans don't have to live under the laws they pass. And because that's not what Arkansas wants. We still have some, rural conservative Democrats, but that's not the animating force. That's not the driving activity in the Democratic Party anymore. It's these radical socialists who want to do things like defund ICE. Do you think the Democrats who still love America will vote against those type of candidates? I think some will, but unfortunately, Dave, when you get nominated in a district that went 40 or 50 points for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump, there's probably not enough to defect. Now, there are Democrats in the Congress who disagree with them. I'd say most notably John Fetterman from the state of Pennsylvania. I know John well. We get along well. John's a Democrat. John will vote for higher taxes. He'll vote for more spending. He's a traditional Democrat, but he's not a socialist. And he'll call it like he sees it. And he'll denounce these socialists who also usually happen to be anti-Semites as well, like the mayor of New York threatening to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu if he passes through their city. There's more like that in the Senate. They don't have John's courage to speak up. But when it comes to casting the votes, you see them just voting to do things like defund ICE.
I got time for maybe two more questions. Let me ask this one, and that has to do with we haven't heard much about the lithium play in southern Arkansas. Where are we on that? Do you know what's going on as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, Dave. Well, it's a good thing that we haven't heard too much lately about it because right now it's all systems go for this big lithium project in the Smackover formation in South Arkansas. For those of you who don't know about lithium, it's an absolutely vital element. It touches almost everything you do in your daily life in the modern digital economy, from the smartphone in your pocket to the car you drive to the tractor you use on your farm to the appliances in your house, to say nothing of our defense industry. We have one of the largest lithium deposits in South Arkansas in the United States. We're looking to produce anywhere from 22 to 23 tons of battery-grade lithium every year. That's more than $1 billion of economic impact. It means hundreds of jobs. I've worked closely with the Trump administration to make sure that we move it along. We helped them get some grant money a couple of years ago. We also got them through their environmental policy review. That was cleared. So really, it's all systems go for what's going to be a vital economic development project for all of South Arkansas and a critical national security priority for our country.
All right. Final question for you, then I'll let you go. And that's the Sunshine Protection Act. Some of the things that I've heard is that you don't support that. I want to get rid of daylight savings time.
Yeah. So, Dave, I talked with so many Arkansans about this, and the one opinion that they all agree with is they hate changing the clock. I hate changing the clock too. But when they think about the second order consequences, they realize that it would be a bad mistake to go to permanent daylight savings time. In the depths of winter, from roughly Christmas to Valentine's Day, the sun wouldn't rise in Arkansas until after 8 o'clock, in some places until after 8:30. We tried this once in 1973. It was very popular. After we didn't change the clock in October of 1973, it polled at 79% in December. Then Americans lived through one January and February of the sun not coming up till 8:30. And it's much worse if you go further north and west in time zones, Dave. In some places, the sun doesn't come up until after 9 or 9:30 or even almost 10 o'clock. And Congress immediately repealed it. Its polling had collapsed. It got 380 votes to repeal in the House. It passed unanimously in the Senate. I don't think we should repeat the mistakes of history and put kids across the state of Arkansas at risk of walking to school and biking to school and waiting at bus stops in the middle of the night. Same thing, we got a lot of industries who do need the sun and a couple hours of warming to get their work done in the depth of winter as well. So I understand that everybody hates changing the clock, but permanent daylight savings time in the depth of winter, I think is a mistake of the past that we don't want to repeat.
All right, that's all the time I know that we have for you, Senator. You got a lot of interviews set up for today. Let me pass on to you, just was reported Anthony Fauci took the Fifth Amendment today. In front
it's amazing. What is he worried about? He's got a pardon.
I'm with you. I know. Well, he doesn't want to get in trouble for what he says from now on. All right. With that,
you should just tell the truth then.
I agree. That's usually the way to go on something like this. I appreciate you, Senator. Thank you for all you do, and we look forward to having you back on the air here in the near future.
Thank you, Dave. Good to be on with you.
All right. Talk to you later. Senator Tom Cotton here on the Dave Elswick Show. Let's get our break in. We'll do that. We'll come back. We'll finish up this half hour. Got another half hour to go, and we'll look at the news. And again, the big news right now, Anthony Fauci took the Fifth Amendment today, or is taking the Fifth Amendment today. And it's happening as we speak right now in Washington, D.C. We'll be back in a moment.
How many times are you going to walk into that outdated bathroom and think, I really need a bathroom makeover? Stop putting it off and transform your bathroom and your life in as little as one day with a beautiful, affordable shower makeover from Jacuzzi Bath Remodel. Choose from custom designs tailored to your budget and style, including safety-focused features for beauty and peace of mind.
I've had a great experience from start to finish. The crew that came in, they were so professional. This looks like a marble, beautiful, new shower, and it was done all in one day.
Right now, we're waiving all installation costs, plus offering no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. Call now to schedule your free design consultation and quote. Call 800-384-3318. That's 800-384-3318. Call 800-384-3318. With purchase and installation, financing through third-party lenders, subject to credit approval. No interest and no payments if paid in full within 12 months. Charged from purchase date if not paid in full. Not all will qualify. Call dealer for details.
It's David Lucas. You know, over the years, I've learned something. Most people, they don't have a money problem. They have a coordination problem. It's not that they don't have investments. They have plenty of accounts, but none of them are working together. In other words, they have all the ingredients, but no recipe. And when that happens, retirement can start to feel complicated, even stressful. But retirement should feel like freedom, not friction. And most people, they don't need a miracle. They just need a clear plan. Because having a few good investments isn't enough. What really helps is having everything working together. And that's why at Lucas Total Wealth, we developed the Thrive Planning Framework, bringing together taxes, healthcare, risk management, income planning, vitality, and estate planning into one coordinated strategy. You can learn more at totalwealth.com. That's totalwealth.com. Don't just retire, plan to thrive.
Investment advisory services are offered through Lucas Total Wealth, an Arkansas registered investment advisor. Arkansas Insurance License, number 1-615-2743.
Concerned about market risk? I'm Ference Toth, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. The S&P 500 valuations are higher than at any time ever recorded in the stock market history. This includes 1929 and 1999. Annuities and Your Personal Bank offer unlimited upside with no downside risk. Tune in to the Your Personal Bank Show Saturdays at 1 p.m. or contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. The Your Personal Bank Show Saturdays at 1 p.m. on 101.1 The Answer.
The Dave Elswick Show continues now. 101.1 The Answer.
Our thanks to the Senator for giving us a few minutes this morning. He was able to sandwich us in with all the different interviews that he has today. and talking on radio and TV. Val, you're the one that was talking in my ear and telling me Fauci was taking the or invoking the Fifth Amendment. You had a story, and you talked about some kind of statement.
Yeah. So Fauci, who led the response, clearly everyone knows who he is. That's the beginning of the story. This is on CNN. Imagine that. But appearing before the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee after being subpoenaed by Senator Rand Paul, Fauci cited what he characterized as the Republican chairman's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution as his reason for refusing to speak. So in his opening statement, Fauci asserted that the sole reason Senator Paul is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything, that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, behind bars. I think half the country wants that. I mean, I'm not like this. Come on now. I don't typically agree with Senator Cotton. However, if Fauci would just tell the truth, there would be nothing to put him behind bars.
Well, see, the problem with Fauci is he doesn't know what the truth is. He wouldn't know it if he jumped up and bit him in the butt. He really wouldn't. And so, he
knows what the truth is, Dave.
You're gonna get from Fauci what Fauci wants you to know. I mean, he knew all the other stuff that was going on that people were talking about was truthful, but he turned the dogs loose on those people and, ruined careers and all kinds of stuff of people who shouldn't have had things. Well,
Millions of people across the world. And this man was at the helm of it. And now he won't speak. So at the start of the hearing, Fauci repeatedly invoked the Fifth Amendment as Paul asked him questions about NIH-funded research and the origins of COVID-19, sometimes appearing to stoke the senator's frustration. Fauci wouldn't respond. And he said, let the record note that the witness has refused to answer whether there is a folder in front of him based on his Fifth Amendment right. Like, he wouldn't even say there's a folder in front of him.
Right.
Like, that's crazy.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if Fauci has, he'll answer a few questions from Democrats when they have him or have the time to ask their questions. If he'll answer what they want to know, or what they want us to know through his being in front of this committee.
It's just disturbing that this man can get away with not having to say anything.
Well, it's one of his constitutional rights. So, I don't have anything against the Constitution.
But yet he wanted to take away all of our rights.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying that he didn't. But, the Constitution is very clear about incrimination. And so, he can keep that from happening. The reason that Rand Paul wanted him there, he knows that what he has done in the past is covered by, that pardon that Biden gave him. Although I think, and it'd be interesting if they get to court and they go after Fauci.
Well, at one time he slips up and lies about one thing, and
he's dead.
over. That is not covered by a pardon.
And that's why Rand Paul wanted him under oath.
And
we got to take a break.
Yep.
We got the news. Let's go to the news, then we'll come back and talk more.
Thomason in Washington. Dr. Anthony Fauci took the fifth today before a Senate panel, refusing to answer any questions about apparent discrepancies between what he wrote in his diary and what he told the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. Fauci was subpoenaed to appear by Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Positive and productive. That's how the U.S. and Israel described President Trump's White House meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Meanwhile, things seem to be heating up again in the Mideast. More back and forth attacks between the U.S. and Iran. It was a party line vote, the Senate confirming Jay Clayton to serve as National Intelligence Director. Japan's earthquake death toll has risen to at least 18 as search and rescue efforts continue on the southern Japanese island of Kyushu. It's a race against the clock, according to Japan's prime minister. This is SRN News.
Probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not so perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you got to call Big Lou because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds too. Get a quote right now at 800-555-2085. 800-555-2085 or biglou.com.
The news never stops, and neither does your schedule. That's why we're here, keeping you up to date with all the biggest stories of the day. We're 101.1 The Answer, where Little Rock comes to talk. What if you could take 101.1 The Answer with you everywhere? You can. Download the 101.1 The Answer app and stay connected to the voices you trust, live and on demand. Wake up with Dave Elswick. Stay sharp with Doc Washburn. And hear from National
The president Netanyahu insisted, and quote, an opportunity to exchange ideas and also to coordinate on things that are important for the security and for the future of Israel. Amit Segal, who writes on a blog, said that the negotiations confirmed what Netanyahu told Trump on the eve of the memorandum of understanding. He doubted it would work, but if Trump wanted to try, he was behind him. A strategy not everyone in his cabinet was willing to back, but one that has clearly been validated. Netanyahu wouldn't dare say it to the president explicitly, but the message is quite simple. Quote, I told you so, which leaves the question of what comes next. And that's what everybody's wanting. That's what we talked about today with Westerman. What comes next? He doesn't know. The president holding his cards very close to the vest. And so we're just going to have to do like everybody else in the world and wait to see what the president decides to do. Trump also met with Zelensky yesterday, and the leaders were talking about diplomatic efforts. The two men seem, says the Wall Street Journal, to have developed a mutually respectful relationship, a much better relationship than they had when Zelensky came to the White House and got dressed down by the vice president. Trump is impressed with how well Ukraine has done in the war with Russia, the Wall Street Journal reported. They went on to say that Trump has been impressed with Zelensky's resilience as he takes the fight deep into Russian territory. The shift comes after several meetings on the sidelines of global summits where the Ukrainian president has tried to charm Trump. The people said part of a concerted campaign by European leaders to improve the relationship. Trump has come to admire Ukraine's drone industry, especially its ability to defend against the same drones that we're facing in the Iran war. Trump, a senior administration official, said, likes winners. And Zelensky, in the U.S. president's estimation, is increasingly looking like one of those. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. The Kiev Independent newspaper said it was a good meeting. They report that Zelensky said the president and I discussed licenses for Patriot interceptor production and several other ideas that could help. We also spoke about diplomacy. It's important that the diplomatic process be reinvigorated, or teams will arrange the details of their further communication. So that is what went down with Zelensky and Trump as well, at least what they want us to know about. You know, a lot of people say, well, Netanyahu and Trump get at each other. Go back and read history. When Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin were all meeting and hammering out what was going to happen after World War II, it's not like it was a meeting of minds that agreed, because they didn't. Because, the Soviet Union, wanted to become a superpower, and Britain, Churchill especially, didn't trust Stalin as far as he could have thrown him. So there was a lot of tenseness whenever they met. All you got to do is look at the pictures. And the only picture that looks like they came out of the meeting feeling pretty good with each other was the Potsdam meeting that they had during World War II. And not much more than a few months after that, Roosevelt had died. And now you had Truman having to take over the reins in the White House. A lot of people celebrated the legacy of Lindsey Graham yesterday. He's said by Netanyahu that he had a moral clarity. Sean Hannity replayed several of his interviews that he did with Graham, and he gave a tribute yesterday to the crowd there at the cathedral and said, and just as President Trump has been Israel's strongest friend, in the history of the White House. The two partners aligned together. Lindsey was that friend to Israel in the United States Senate as long as I've known this man. Lindsey, he was often unfairly characterized as a warmonger. I've heard that false criticism a lot. It isn't true. The truth was the opposite. Lindsey desperately wanted and talked to the president about a lasting peace in the Middle East. He wanted every region, every country in the region on that path to peace. That was Lindsey's dream. If people would only listen to what he had been saying. His greatest gift in life, from my perspective, was Lindsey had moral clarity. He understood right from wrong, good from evil, and he knew, as President Trump knows, as Israel knows, as I know, there can be no path to peace until evil is defeated. Matt Margolis said when he looked at Trump's comments, quote, one thing about Lindsey that we all know, he never quit. You wanted him to quit. You waited for him to quit, but he would never quit. A great tribute video was produced by the GOP. I suggest you go on your internet to Senate Republicans, and watch it. It's really, really good.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, look, everybody says, well, they had their problems. Yeah, that's true. But, my mama always told me, and my daddy backed her up on this, you don't speak ill of the dead. If you don't have anything good to say, then don't ask to say it. That's the best way to be. As that is.
Got an update for you.
Okay. Oh, Fauci given what the Fifth
So Rand
Amendment?
Paul kicked out his lawyer, Fauci's lawyer, David Schertler, from the hearing.
Oh, really?
Apparently, he was going to talk, and he was like, "You're not recognized. You're not recognized. If you are unruly, you will be removed from the proceeding. You are not recognized, sir." Paul said, "You were told not to sit at the table. You insist on sitting at the table, and we told you you would not be recognized. You are not invited here for testimony, sir. You are being disruptive. Would you behave this way in a courtroom?" No, because the judge would put you in jail. I can't do that today, but I can have you escorted from the premises.
Yep.
Security, please remove him from the room, which drew applause from people attending the hearing.
Well, of course.
The Democrats on the committee, Senator Gary Peters of Michigan, said that he wanted to hear from Fauci's lawyer, but Paul said he is not recognized by the committee or the chair. If he speaks again, he will be removed from the room. This testimony is from Anthony Fauci. This is not a game with his lawyers.
That was very good.
I love Rand Paul.
I get on the wrong side of Paul at times, but for the most part, I'm in his corner, and all he's got to do is he's proven that he can fight with his fists in his front yard.
He did his neighbor, huh?
Yeah, he did. His neighbor was nuts. I'm glad that my neighbors aren't like that.
Right.
I don't know them that well, but I know them enough that I know they're not going to try to run me over with their lawnmower.
Maybe. Drunken, you never know.
Let's talk about one thing about Lindsey Graham that, you can't expect the press to talk about it because they hated him for it. And is that, Graham and talks about life. He was firmly anti-abortion and pro-life. As we watch the ongoing battle for human dignity, he said he stood for life. Marjorie Dannenfelser of SBA Pro-Life America's participation in the memorial yesterday served as a helpful reminder that Lindsey was a lifelong, consistent, convictional pro-life advocate. Senator Lindsey Graham will always live in our memories as a friend and hero to the pro-life movement. To the very last day, he never stopped fighting for the human rights of those least able to defend themselves, the unborn. He spent his life in service to their lives with courage, grace, and tenacity, an example to inspire generations of leaders to follow. Our hearts and prayers are with Senator Graham's family, colleagues, staff, friends, and all those who loved and looked up to him. And we're thankful for every moment that we've had with the senator. So good things talked about as far as his pro-life stand during his many years in the United States Senate. About 14 minutes until 8 o'clock, until 9 o'clock here on the Dave Elswick Show. And another story we've been watching is the whole thing about Anthony Fauci. He's not said anything that means anything. He's evoked the Fifth Amendment during the whole meeting today. Now, new tapes are confirming what America saw as well, and that was that Biden was operating with significant cognitive decline.
And then you have people like Senator Maggie Hassan, who today in her questioning told Fauci she would have preferred a hearing about the current public health crisis plaguing the U.S. rather than a COVID pandemic. Children are dying because there has been increased vaccine hesitancy. And she goes off on Robert Kennedy. Like, okay, this man lied to us and conspired with your party and then got a pardon for it.
Yeah, and with your president.
Exactly.
Did all of that. These new audio tapes, though, they're confirming about how Biden was when he was in the White House. And these are tapes that are coming out that he's talking to his ghostwriter about what was going on during the time that he was president. The former president was, in fact, aware that the documents, remember when he had the documents in his
Corvette?
His garage?
In his garage with a Corvette, yeah.
And Fox News reporting that after a prolonged legal battle during which Biden sought to keep the audio tapes private, a nonprofit called the Oversight Project obtained them via public records request. The damning tapes reveal Biden's inability to remember basic names and dates. The interviews were marked by consistent lapses of memory. But in 2024, that didn't stop Democrats from accusing her. He was the person out of the Department of Justice that wrote up the report on the former president of being a partisan activist who intentionally tried to tarnish Biden and his chances in a rematch against Trump. Andrew Wiseman, a former general counsel to the FBI, cried foul many times about that. Kyle Becker at Red State, which is owned by Salem Media, wrote this. President Joe Biden just stepped in it. His damning audio confession that, quote, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs, unquote, was revealed to the world in the recently released Ghostwriter tapes. The startling admission dates to a February 2017 audio recording, which is a month after he left the White House as vice president. No wonder the Biden legal team was fighting so hard to keep the tapes from going public. Former Assistant Attorney General Jeffrey Clark, now Vice President of Litigation for the Oversight Project, said his initial review indicates Biden disclosed classified information directly to his ghostwriter during those interviews. Quote, our team is reviewing the Biden tapes now. We will be out with various bombshells, Clark wrote on Monday. But I want to make this point right now. The tapes make clear that Biden disclosed massive amounts of classified information to his ghostwriter. And that, my friends, is illegal. All right? It's illegal. All right, let's take our final, of course, he's under pardon too. Let's take our final break, and then we'll finish it up for a Wednesday here on the Dave Elswick Show.
If you owe the IRS back taxes, you need the best team on your side. Priority Tax Relief has helped thousands of Americans resolve their IRS problems and settle for pennies on the dollar. As a leading tax resolution firm, we have an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, hundreds of 5-star reviews, and a 4.9-star rating on Google because we deliver results and huge savings. If you owe $5,000 or more and even facing wage garnishment, liens, levies, audits, or IRS letters, call us today at 800-741-5015. Once you call, our tax professionals will call the IRS with you for free, and within minutes, start negotiating a settlement. We'll put a stop to collections and fight to get you the best settlement possible. Choose the company Americans trust most. Call Priority Tax Relief now at 800-741-5015 to see what relief you qualify for. Don't wait. Make the call. Dial 800-741-5015. Once again, that's 800-741-5015.
Foundations of Freedom, a look at America's founding principles and the leaders who shaped our nation.
During the War for Independence, General George Washington, the man we refer to today as the father of our country, led American troops through military defeat after defeat. And in the bitter winter of 1777, he wrote this somber note to a friend in Philadelphia. Quote, "You might have tracked our army from White Marsh to Valley Forge by the blood on their feet," end of quote. Many soldiers continued to march through the deep snows of Pennsylvania without shoes. Others suffered from disease, hunger, and freezing conditions. Nearly 2,000 of Washington's men died. Yet George Washington did not lose faith. Amid the hardship, loss, and uncertainty of Valley Forge, he turned to God in prayer. At a time when our nation once again faces division and uncertainty, may we follow Washington's example, kneeling humbly, praying faithfully, and asking God to guide the future of America.
Town Hall News, where conservative voices cut through the noise from breaking headlines to fearless opinion. We report what matters without apology, written by people who actually believe what you believe. Town Hall tells the stories the corporate press buries, from President Trump to Capitol Hill, from pivotal elections to your everyday lives. Join the movement at townhall.com. Real stories, real reporters, real conservative media.
Dave Elswick is the conservative voice of Arkansas, and he's back. 101.1, The Answer.
You know, what's really, really amazing to me is how the elites in the media have been downplaying the radicalization of the DSA, you know, about the whole thing with socialism taking over from the left, taking over the whole Democratic Party. And so just know that I'm going to read something that Albert Mohler had to say. He at one time was the head of the Southern Baptist Church, and he's a contributor to the folks at Fox News. And he says this: the energy on the left today, it's clear for all to see, is on the progressive wing. But the Democratic Socialists today are far more radical than our elite outlets want us or are willing to admit. Yes, they do see and talk about a battle for the soul of the party. Mohler goes on, quote, they can hardly miss it. At the same time, they have not drawn much attention to the DSA and its political aims. To the credit of the DSA party, they don't hide behind a screen of smoke and mirrors. They assert their aims clearly, as I've said. Mohler is the one who said, comrades, get ready. According to their main platform, which was published as, quote, our program, and I've read from that right directly off the website of the DSNA. The DSA promises a full revolution. I mean, remember when Obama said his goal was to change America? He wasn't kidding. He was really going to try to change, and he did change America, and not for the better. According to their main platform, DSA published as our program, the DSA promises a full revolution, Marxist style. They call for ending capitalistic oligarchy and creating a real democracy. Let's stop there first and talk about this. No, the founding fathers did not want a true democracy, because a true democracy is two wolves out of three people arguing over if they're going to have mutton for dinner, and the third member of their group is a sheep. Just remind yourselves that capitalist oligarchy means private property. Remember that. It's important that you can keep your private property. They can't just at least right now they can't just take that. Addressing readers who will vote in the 2026 midterms, the document states, quote, some of these demands may be won under the current system, but we know complete victory will require building a new society from the ground up. What would that mean? Well, buckle your political seatbelts. Here's what they want to eliminate: the police, empty the jails, socialize medical care and housing, and eventually take their revolution throughout the entire society. As for the nation's constitutional system, nothing less than a new revolution will do. Abolish the Electoral College, they demand. On the DSA site, an article entitled Towards a Presidential Platform states, we'll sweep to power using presidential politics to help trigger an avalanche of working class struggle and rip up the old rule book. So what's the old rule book? The old rule book is called the Constitution of the United States of America. So yes, comrades, you've been warned. You've been warned about what they want to do. Believe what they say. My dad always told me that if somebody says it, you got to believe it, because you got to think of those things that you're saying. So keep in mind about the left wing of the Democrat Party are wanting, a full, revolution like what we had in Russia when they got rid of the Tsar. That's what they want to do. All right, news is coming up, and we're going to get to it in just a moment. Tomorrow, as usual, on Sundays, we'll have folks from Bumper to Bumper on. And then what other guests do we have on tomorrow, Val?
Well, we had Congressman Crawford, but he had to reschedule. So
Okay.
just the news, I suppose.
Okay, so
I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about with this Fauci
yeah.
hearing.
Oh yeah, we'll have plenty to discuss. There's always things to talk about, and things that are going to affect you, directly. Remember what we always say here. You either get involved in politics, or politics will get involved with you. All right, news, and then we'll be back, with Gallagher right here on 101.1 The Answer.
Find us at 1011fmtheanswer.com. Download our app, stream us 24/7, or watch us at snc.tv. KDXE, Kamek Village, Little Rock.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. The man who had so much to say during the COVID pandemic now has nothing to say. Dr. Anthony Fauci took the fifth today before a Senate panel, refusing to answer any questions about apparent discrepancies between what he wrote in a diary and what he told the public during the pandemic. Fauci was subpoenaed to appear by Republican Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. Democrats accuse Paul of harboring a longtime bias against Fauci. Paul says that what Fauci wrote privately and what he told the country, two different stories. Positive and productive is how the U.S. and Israel describe President Trump's White House meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Meanwhile, it seems that things are heating up again in the Middle East.
President Trump announced at the weekend that he was calling off a nearly 2-week American bombing campaign that had seen nightly strikes by the U.S. on Iran in order to make way for negotiations. But a statement from U.S. Central Command said that since Sunday, what it called terrorists aligned to Iran had mounted more than 24 drone attacks against U.S. and Saudi targets from bases in eastern Iraq. U.S. and Saudi fighter jets struck multiple targets near the Iran-Iraq border and elsewhere in Iraq as part of what it called a strong response.
The BBC's David Willis. Jordan's military says its air defenses intercepted a handful of Iranian missiles earlier today. The party line vote, the Senate confirms Jay Clayton as the new director of national intelligence. Japan's earthquake death toll has risen to at least 18 as a desperate search for survivors of race against the clock goes on the southern island of Kyushu. Stocks in the red on Wall Street. The Dow is down about 610 points. The Nasdaq off 124 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Well, it's official. My friends have all switched to Pure Talk because I told them they could save a bunch of money on a super reliable high-speed network with unlimited data. And because they're my friends, they trust me. As for the rest of you, well, Pure Talk understands that even though you might like me, you're not just going to take my word for it, nor should you. For that reason, and for a very limited time, Pure Talk is offering any of their plans for just $15 a month for the first 3 months, including their top-tier unlimited plan.